The deal in the dark. The marketplace was cold and dark. Dirty lights flickered above. Alien creatures walked past, eyes full of hunger and greed. Some laughed, some traded. But in one corner, away from the crowd, stood a broken cage. Inside, and alien woman stood quietly, arms wrapped around her thin child. Her name was Lyra. Her skin was pale blue, cracked from cold and hunger. Her eyes were once full of fire. Now they looked empty. She wore torn clothes and no shoes. Her small son, Tilo, clung to her leg. He had not eaten in 2 days. His tiny belly growled. A loud voice shouted, "Next sale. 1 adult female. Strong body. Working hands. Comes with child." No one moved. The seller hit the bars of the cage. "Come on. She's healthy. Her kind lives long. You can train her easily." Still, no one stepped forward. Lyra looked at the crowd. She took a deep breath. Then she did something that made people stop and look. She got on her knees. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "Take me. Just feed my child. He's all I have." Gasps came from the crowd. Some laughed. Others turned away. One human man standing in the back heard everything. His name was Ethan. He wore simple clothes and had a backpack. His face was quiet, unreadable, but his eyes stayed on Lyra and her son. Something in him hurt. The seller saw Ethan looking. "You there, human, interested?" Ethan stepped closer. The smell of dirt and blood was strong. He looked at Lyra, then at Tilo. "How much?" Ethan asked. The seller grinned. "Cheap today, 15 credits, no refunds." Ethan opened his bag. He had 20 credits, he gave 15. "Sold!" the seller shouted, unlocking the cage. Lyra closed her eyes. She whispered to her son, "Be brave. We'll eat tonight." Ethan bent down. Instead of pulling her, he took out a small food bar and water bottle. He gave them to the child first. Tilo looked at him, then tore the bar open and began to eat with both hands. His mother cried silently. "Can you stand?" Ethan asked softly. Lyra nodded but could barely move. She was weak. Ethan didn't force her. He picked up the child with one arm and helped Lyra walk with the other. The crowd stared. Some whispered. Some laughed. One alien spat and said, "Stupid human, bought trash." But Ethan didn't listen. They walked through the market slowly. Lyra kept looking at him, confused. "Why did you buy me?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Because no one else would. She looked down. Her legs shook. He noticed. "There's a place safe, come with me." They reached a small building made of metal and stone. Inside was a bed, a heater, and clean water. Nothing fancy, but warm. Safe. Ethan placed Tilo on the bed and covered him with a blanket. He brought soup in a bowl. "Eat slowly. Your body isn't ready for too much." Lyra looked at the bowl, then at him. "You don't want anything from me?" Ethan shook his head. "No." She stared. "Then why?" He looked out the window. "My mother died in a cage. Long ago, I couldn't help her. But I can help someone else." Lyra felt her heart crack open. Her hands shook as she picked up the bowl. That night, she slept near her son, wrapped in real blankets. No chains, no guards. But in the dark, her eyes stayed open. She watched Ethan sit in the other corner of the room, cleaning his boots quietly. She didn't understand this man. He paid for her, but treated her like a person. A tear rolled down her cheek. The next morning, Ethan made simple breakfast. Tilo laughed for the first time. He played with an old toy Ethan gave him. Lyra smiled but didn't speak much. Ethan said gently, "When you're ready, you can leave. Or stay. Your choice." Lyra didn't know what to say. Her heart beat fast. She had sold herself to feed her son. But what had she found? Not slavery, not chains, but something stranger. Kindness, hope, love. She didn't know yet, but she knew one thing She wasn't alone anymore. Shelter and silence. Lyra sat near the wall, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her son, Tilo, slept peacefully beside her. His belly was full for the first time in days. A blanket covered his small body and his chest rose and fell in a quiet rhythm. The room was still. Too still. The walls were plain. No cameras, no locks, just warmth. But Lyra couldn't rest. Her eyes kept watching the human. Ethan. He sat on the other side of the room, fixing something from his toolkit. Quiet. Focused. He hadn't touched her, hadn't asked anything from her, not even her name. Lyra whispered, "Why?" Ethan didn't look up. "Why what? Why are you helping us?" He glanced at her, then returned to his work. "You needed help. That's not a reason." He finally looked at her fully. His voice was calm. "Maybe it's not, but I saw a mother ready to sell her life to save her son. That was enough for me." Lyra said nothing. She had begged strangers before, begged to be bought, to be used, just for scraps of food for her son. None had looked at her like Ethan did. Not with hunger, not with disgust, just respect. It confused her. Later, Ethan made soup again. He handed a bowl to Lyra. She stared at it. He waited. Finally, she asked, "What do you want in return?" "Nothing." She narrowed her eyes. "You paid credits for me." Ethan shrugged. "I paid to stop that auction, not to own anyone." Lyra felt her throat tighten. She had lived too long in a world where nothing came free, where kindness was a trick. She wanted to trust, but fear sat like a stone in her chest. She ate slowly. Her hand still shook. Tilo woke up and smiled. "Mama." "Warm," he mumbled before going back to sleep. Lyra smiled, just a little. Ethan showed her the small space they now shared. "It's not much," he said. "But it's safe. You can stay until you're strong." Lyra asked softly, "What if we never get strong?" Ethan answered without hesitation, "Then you still stay." Days passed. Tilo played with broken tools. Lyra helped Ethan clean the room and cook. They didn't talk much, but slowly the silence changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Lyra began to sleep better. Her face, once thin and pale, started to glow with color again. But inside, she still carried fear. She often woke up, in the night, heart racing, expecting chains, expecting pain. One night she dreamed of her old home, of laughter, gardens, and her husband. Then, the war, the fire, the soldiers. She woke up crying. Ethan brought her water without asking anything. That's when she realized something strange. He knew pain too. One evening, Lyra found an old photo in Ethan's drawer. A woman, human, with kind eyes and a baby in her arms. "Your family?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Gone. Long ago." "What happened?" He looked away. "I was off-world. I came back too late." Lyra didn't ask more. She didn't need to. She could see it in his eyes. Grief. Loss. Loneliness. They were not so different. Both of them had lost everything. Both had one reason to live. Hers was Tilo. His. She didn't know yet. But maybe, just maybe, she was becoming part of it. Outside, shadows moved in the alley. Someone watched the little building where Ethan lived. A figure in a dark coat sent a silent message. "Target located. Confirming identity." "Orders?" The reply came quickly. "Wait. Watch. Do not engage." Inside, Lyra held her son close and whispered, "We're safe now." But safety, in this galaxy, was never certain. That night, while cleaning up, Ethan turned to her and said, "If you ever want to leave, I'll help. I'll take you anywhere you want to go." Lyra was quiet. Then she asked, "And if I want to stay?" Ethan looked surprised. "Then this is your home too." She didn't say anything more. But when she lay beside her son that night, she smiled for the first time in months. Real, gentle, and warm. But far away, someone from her past was coming, and he did not bring kindness. The illness returns. The sun never truly rose on this side of the planet, only a dull light that colored the streets gray. But inside Ethan's shelter, there was warmth and laughter. Tilo giggled as he chased a small, light drone Ethan had repaired for him. Lyra stood nearby smiling while washing the few dishes they had. For once, everything felt normal. But peace is like glass, beautiful and easy to break. That night, Tilo coughed once, then again, then harder. Lyra rushed to him, her heart pounding. His skin was hot. His breath came in small, weak gasps. "Tilo?" she whispered, brushing his hair back. "Sweetheart, talk to me." The child didn't open his eyes. Ethan came running and placed his hand on the boy's forehead. "He's burning up," he said quickly. "We need a doctor. Now." They traveled through back alleys and avoided patrols. Many alien cities had laws against helping refugees. Ethan was already risking his life by hiding them. They reached a small clinic run by an old alien healer named Merak. He glanced at Tilo and hissed softly. "Severe infection. Internal. He needs medicine. Rare and expensive." Lyra stepped forward, desperate. "I can work. I'll clean floors, scrub waste." Merak shook his head. "No one will pay enough. He needs medicine now." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She turned to Ethan. "Sell me again." Ethan froze. "What?" "Sell me," she repeated, voice shaking. "Use the credits to save my son. Please. He doesn't have time." Ethan stared at her. "I didn't save you so I could lose you like that." "Then why?" she cried. "He's dying. I'll give my life for his." Ethan took a step back, his jaw clenched. He looked at Tilo, then at Lyra. Without a word, he pulled out his old sidearm from his backpack. Lyra's heart dropped. You're going to sell me?" Ethan walked past her. "No," he said. "I'm going to sell this." It was the last weapon he owned. A gift from his brother before the war. Strong, rare, and valuable. He walked straight into the black market, into a place where humans were not welcome. He didn't care. He sold it to a gang leader. Got half the price he deserved, but he didn't argue. He took the credits, ran to the clinic and slammed them on the table. "Give the boy what he needs." Merak blinked in surprise. "You would give this much? For someone else's child?" Ethan's voice was cold. "He's not someone else's. He's ours now." Lyra sat beside Tilo while the medicine slowly dripped into his veins. She held, his tiny hand, tears running down her face. When Ethan entered, she looked at him with wide eyes. "What did you give up?" "Does it matter?" she whispered. "Everything you do, it makes me want to believe." "In what?" "In people." Tilo's fever broke the next day. He opened his eyes, weak but smiling. "Mama." Lyra laughed through her tears. She kissed his forehead and looked at Ethan. "Thank you," she said. "I know what you've lost for us." Ethan just smiled. "He's worth it." But outside, in the shadow of a rooftop, a figure watched. The same dark-cloaked man who had sent a message before. He tapped his communicator again. "The woman has been found," confirming her identity. "Awaiting extraction." The reply was quick and cold. "Take her alive. Kill anyone who gets in your way." That evening, Ethan stepped out to gather supplies. Lyra stood by the window, watching the street. Her son was safe, alive. But something inside her was uneasy. Her heart no longer felt hollow, but it was fragile. And something in the wind felt like danger. She turned to her sleeping son, tucked the blanket gently around him, and whispered, "No matter what happens, I won't lose you again." Outside, footsteps approached, but they didn't belong to Ethan. The past hunts. The shadows outside grew longer as night fell over the city. Inside the shelter, Lyra sat by the window, her heart strangely uneasy. Her son Tylo was asleep again, his breathing calm and quiet. But something felt wrong. Ethan was still not back. He had said he'd return in an hour. It had been 2. She checked the door again, still locked, still safe. But her instincts, sharp from years of pain, whispered something dark was coming, and she was right. Across the alley, a figure stepped out from the shadows. Tall, thin, wearing a long, dark coat and a helmet with glowing red lenses. His name was Varn, and he had once owned her. Years ago, before she escaped with her child, she had burned her ID, changed her name, hidden in slums, but Varn had never stopped hunting her. He stared at the building, his gloved hand touching his communicator. Confirmed, target inside. A voice crackled in his ear. Retrieve the woman. Leave no witnesses. Inside, Lyra felt her chest tighten. She turned to Tylo and pulled the blanket tighter around him. Then, thud. A sound from the roof. She grabbed a tool from Ethan's table, a metal wrench, and slowly crept toward the door. A second sound. Softer this time. She pressed her ear to the door. Silence. Suddenly, a loud crash. The back window shattered. Lyra screamed and rushed to shield her child. A tall figure dropped into the room. Varn. He smiled behind his helmet. Hello, Lyra. Her face turned white. No, not you. You were always mine, he growled. And you ran. He stepped forward. Now, you'll pay. Lyra stood between him and her son, holding the wrench tightly. You won't take him, she said, voice trembling but firm. Varn laughed. You think I care about that boy? I came for you. Lyra swung the wrench. Varn caught her arm midair and threw her to the ground. She cried out in pain but didn't let go of the wrench. Just as Varn raised his weapon, the door burst open. Ethan, his face full of fury, his shirt torn, bruises on his jaw, but his eyes burning with fire. He charged in and slammed into Varn, knocking him back. Get away from her, Ethan shouted. The two men fought hard. Ethan had no weapon, but he had strength, speed, and something stronger. Rage. He took punch after punch but never stopped. Lyra watched in horror as blood splattered the floor. Then, in a flash of movement, Ethan grabbed the wrench from the ground and swung. Crack. Varn hit the wall and fell, groaning. Ethan turned to Lyra. Grab Tylo, we're leaving. She nodded and ran to her son, lifting him into her arms. Outside, sirens began to scream. Varn had triggered an alert. More were coming. Ethan led them through secret tunnels below the city, old cargo routes he once used during the war. As they moved, Lyra whispered, You knew this would happen. I saw someone watching the shelter yesterday, he replied. I hoped I was wrong. Why didn't you say something? Ethan looked at her. Because I didn't want you to be afraid. She paused, then said softly, You were afraid, too, weren't you? He nodded. Of losing you. Hours later, they reached a hidden spaceport at the edge of the city. Old ships, rusted hulls, smugglers, mercenaries. Ethan found a pilot he trusted, paid him with the last of his credits. We're getting out of here, he told Lyra. She held her sleeping son tighter. Where will we go? Someplace where you're not hunted, where Tylo can grow up free. Lyra looked at Ethan, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. You lost everything for us. Ethan shook his head. I didn't lose. I chose. As they boarded the ship, Lyra turned back one last time. She had spent years running from her past, from pain, from slavery. Now she was running toward something else. Not freedom, not safety, but something stronger. A chance to live again. A taste of peace. The stars looked different from this side of the galaxy. Lyra stood by the window of their small new shelter, far away from the city where they had nearly lost everything. The spaceport pilot had dropped them off on a quiet forest moon, where old cabins stood hidden in the trees. No patrols, no bounty hunters, no watchers. Just peace. Ethan had found an empty home, a small wooden structure built near a stream. He repaired the roof and fixed the broken door with his own hands. Lyra swept the dust out. Tilo filled the rooms with his laughter. For the first time in years, they had a place to breathe. One morning, Ethan was in the garden, teaching Tilo how to plant seeds. "Dig a little," he said, handing the boy a spade. "Not too deep." Tilo giggled and made a small hole. "Like this?" "Perfect." Lyra watched from the doorway, her arms crossed. She hadn't seen her son smile this much since before the war. She stepped outside, her bare feet brushing soft grass. "Ethan," she said quietly, "I never asked why this place." He looked up. "Because no one comes here, no war, no credits, just air, water, and time." Lyra looked at the sky. "Time feels strange when you've always been running." "Then stop running," Ethan said gently. "You're safe here." That night, Lyra made soup over a small fire. Ethan sat across from her. The light danced on his face, making his scars fade. She finally asked the question she had been holding in her heart. "Why didn't you ask me for anything?" He raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "You paid for me, saved us, risked your life. Why didn't you take anything in return?" Ethan's voice was calm. "Because I didn't want a debt. I wanted to help." Lyra stared at the flames. "I've never known kindness like yours. It scares me." He chuckled softly. "It scares me too." They both smiled. For a moment, the silence was beautiful. Days turned into weeks. Lyra began fixing the house herself. She cleaned the windows, gathered herbs, and even made curtains out of old cloth. Tilo grew stronger. His cough was gone. His cheeks were round again. He followed Ethan like a shadow, calling him teacher and friend. Sometimes he called him Papa. Without thinking, Lyra heard it. So did Ethan, but neither said anything. One evening, while walking near the stream, Ethan found Lyra sitting alone. She didn't hear him at first. She was staring at the water, humming a soft tune, something from her old life. He sat beside her. "Is something wrong?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, everything is too quiet. I don't trust it." He nodded. "I understand." She looked at him. "I was not always a slave," she said suddenly. "I had a home, a husband, a garden. I used to laugh." Ethan stayed quiet. "One day soldiers came, burned everything, took me, killed him." She took a deep breath. "They said I was lucky to be sold. Better than being killed." She turned to Ethan. "But now I wonder, what did they fear in a woman? With nothing left to lose?" Ethan placed a hand over hers. "You still have something. You have your son, and now you have me." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what this feeling is," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "It's called peace. You're allowed to feel it." Later that night, Tilo was fast asleep, curled beside a stuffed cloth pillow Lyra had sewn by hand. She walked to Ethan's room with quiet steps. He looked up from a book, surprised. She sat beside him. "Would it be wrong if I stayed here tonight?" she asked softly. Ethan said nothing. He simply moved over. She laid down beside him. Neither touched, neither spoke, just breath and warmth. Her head rested near his chest, and for the first time in her life, sleep came with safety. But peace doesn't last forever. Far above in a different star system, a message was being decoded. Target escaped. Last known ship. Civilian trader. Class D. Possible destination. Forest Moon 9C. Another voice responded. Send scouts. Begin quiet surveillance. Do not approach until confirmed. The hunter was not done. Not yet. The choice rain fell softly over the forest moon. Ethan stood under the shelter roof watching the sky drip. His old coat was soaked, but he didn't move. His eyes searched the tree line beyond their small garden. Something wasn't right. Birds weren't singing. The wind had gone still. Inside, Lyra stirred the stew over the fire. Tilo sat on the floor, coloring a paper with crushed flower petals. He looked up. "Mama? Why is Papa outside?" Lyra froze. The word Papa came so easily from him now. She smiled. Maybe he's watching for deer. But in her heart, she felt it too. A tension in the air like before a storm. Ethan returned, face grim. "Get your things," he said quietly. "Now." Lyra stood. "What's wrong?" "I saw tracks. Heavy ones, not animal. Military boots." Her hands trembled. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "They're here. They found us." She grabbed Tilo and hugged him close. "We have to run." "No," Ethan said. "Running again won't help. We don't even know where they are. We need to plan." Lyra's voice shook. "If they take me, and they won't leave you alive, they won't leave Tilo." Ethan took a deep breath, then said something she didn't expect. "Then I'll give them a reason to take me instead." He handed her a folded map. "Take the river path to the north. There's a trader outpost in 2 days' walk. Quiet, remote, safe." Lyra stared at the map. "And you?" "I'll stay. If they think I'm alone, they'll focus on me. I'll lead them away." She stepped back, eyes wide. "No, you'll die." "Maybe," Ethan said, "but you'll live. That's all that matters." She gripped his arms. "Don't do this. You're not a soldier anymore." "I never stopped protecting people," he whispered. "You gave me a family. I won't lose it." They packed in silence. Tilo didn't understand why his mama was crying. Ethan knelt down and gave him a small, wooden toy, hand-carved, shaped like a bird. "Tilo," he said softly. "Keep this safe, okay?" Tilo nodded. "Are you coming with us?" Ethan smiled, but his eyes were sad. "Soon. I promise." Lyra didn't speak. She couldn't. Her heart was breaking. At nightfall, Lyra and Tilo left, hidden by shadows and forest cover. Rain masked their scent and sounds. Ethan watched from the rooftop. He held his old knife in one hand. No gun. No backup. But he had purpose. And that was enough. Just before dawn, they came. 3 soldiers in black gear. No flags. No names. Just orders. They broke the door down. Ethan waited inside, calm. "Where is she?" One barked. He shrugged. "She left months ago. You're late." The soldier raised a stun baton. "Wrong answer." Ethan moved faster than they expected. A chair slammed into one. Another was thrown through the window, but the third caught him in the ribs. Hard. He fell. Blood in his mouth, pain in his spine. Still, he smiled. "They're gone," he whispered. "And you'll never find them." The leader raised his weapon. "Pity," he said. "Then you're no longer useful." A sudden bang echoed, but it wasn't from the gun. It was from behind them. Lyra. She stood at the door, soaked, shaking, holding a blaster she had taken from Ethan's secret stash. "You want me?" she screamed. "Then take me." Tilo was nowhere in sight. The soldiers turned, but too late. She fired. Once. Twice. 2 dropped. The last charged at her, but Ethan rose and tackled him mid-run. They crashed into the wall. The soldier dropped, unconscious. Lyra rushed to Ethan's side. He coughed, barely breathing. "I told you to run." Tears ran down her cheeks. "You told me to live. I chose to live. With you." They burned the soldier's gear and left nothing behind. Ethan could barely walk. Lyra helped him into the cart she had hidden nearby. Tilo ran out from the woods, crying and hugging them both. They moved north, slowly, but together. That night, beside a cold fire, Lyra sat by Ethan's side. He was bruised. Blood dried on his lips, but his eyes stayed open. "You didn't leave," he whispered. She smiled through tears. "No, I chose you. I choose you, every time." Ethan took her hand. And for the first time in his life, he felt chosen too. Love was the real rescue dawn. Came slowly over the hills of the quiet forest moon. Birdsong returned to the trees. Mist floated above the stream. The chaos of the night before felt like a bad dream. But the bruises were real, and the blood on Ethan's shirt was proof they had survived. Barely. Lyra sat beside him, gently pressing a cloth to his side. He winced, but didn't complain. Tilo slept nearby, curled up with his wooden bird toy. "Does it hurt?" Lyra asked softly. Ethan gave a half smile. "Only when I breathe." "Then stop breathing." They both chuckled. Even in pain, he found a way to make her smile. By noon, they reached the edge of a new settlement. Small, peaceful, and hidden. The people there didn't ask questions. They saw a hurt man, a tired woman, and a boy who needed a safe place. And that was enough. They gave them a small cabin, food, medicine, a place to rest. Lyra tucked Tilo into bed that night. He looked at her sleepily. "Mama." "Yes? Are we going to stay this time?" She brushed his hair back. "Yes, my little star. We're home." Ethan sat outside on the porch, looking up at the stars. Lyra joined him, wrapping a blanket over his shoulders. "You shouldn't be up," she scolded. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Too quiet." She sat beside him. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. "You almost did," she replied. "But I came back." Ethan turned to her, voice softer. "Why?" Lyra took his hand. "Because I'm not a slave anymore. I'm not a runaway. I'm not for sale." She looked into his eyes. "I'm a woman. A mother. And now I'm something else." He waited. She smiled. "I'm yours." The next morning, Lyra went into town. She returned with something in her hands, a small silver ring, simple, shiny, nothing fancy. She handed it to Ethan. "What's this?" he asked. "It's not much," she said. "But I want to give you something. A choice." He looked confused. "You saved me," she said. "More than once. You gave me food, freedom, safety, but most of all you gave me love without asking for it." She held his hand. "Now I'm asking you something." He stared into her bright, clear eyes. "Will you stay, Ethan? Not just with us, but for us?" He didn't answer with words. He slid the ring on his finger. They built a new life together. Lyra worked in the garden, singing songs from her past. Ethan built furniture and tools, teaching other settlers how to craft and survive. Tilo went to a small school nearby. He made friends, learned to laugh again. Called Ethan Dad without thinking. One evening, the three of them sat under the stars, wrapped in one big blanket. Tilo asked, "Will the bad people come again?" Ethan looked at him seriously. "Maybe. But we'll face them together," Lyra added, smiling. "Like a family." Tilo nodded. "Then I'm not scared." The bounty was never spoken of again. Whoever had placed the order disappeared. Or perhaps they realized, some people are not worth chasing once they've been truly loved. Lyra's name was forgotten in old records. But in the quiet village, her new name, Lyra Ethanstone, became known as the woman who made beautiful scarves, sweet soup, and carried the eyes of someone who had seen fire and survived. Years later, when Tilo was grown and strong, he asked Ethan, "Why did you save us that day?" Ethan smiled. "Because no one else did." Tilo shook his head. "No, that wasn't why." Ethan looked surprised. "Then why do you think?" Tilo answered. "Because love doesn't ask for reasons. And deep in the forest, in a world far from war, chains, and markets, a woman who was once sold, and a man who once walked alone, built something the galaxy couldn't buy, or break a home, a family, a forever,